Hi, as we left off before, Iago had already determined the more always changes with my poison. And of course his poison is to make Othello think that his younger wife, what I'm sure Iago would call a trophy wife, does not have the self-control to just be faithful to her husband. So now we're down at about line 330, and Othello enters, and remember that Iago was talking about how jealousy burns like sulfur, like hell. And Othello enters, and Iago's still talking. I did say so. Look where he comes. Not Poppy or Mandragora, nor all the drowsy spirits of the world shall ever medicine thee to that sweet sleep which thou owedest yesterday. He knows that he's disrupting all of Othello's thoughts. His sleep, he has caused him so that Othello is depressed. And when people don't get sleep, what happens to them? They can't make good decisions. I'm trying to load my marker here. All right. And Othello says, "Ha ha, fault to me? Why, how now, General? No more of that. Allons." Othello is speaking, he's supposed to be Italian, but he's speaking French. Because the French actually, during the 100 Years' War, which was not 100 years, it was longer than that, the French actually occupied England, and the English language grew by a third. That's why we have words like bouquet and banquet and souvenir. Souvenir. Souvenir is how we say it, but souvenir is how the French would say it. "Begone, thou hast set me on the rack." And he's referring to the Inquisition at the time. Now, England had already broken off from the Catholic Church, and because Henry VIII, not because he wanted to get divorced, because he wanted to steal all the treasure from the Catholic Church and make himself the head of the church so that everybody paid their tithing to him instead of to God. But in Catholic countries, you had the Inquisition going where they would put people on the rack, and that meant putting people and stretching them until their bones came out of their sockets so that they could repent. And then if they repented, they would burn them at the stake just to be nice. "You've already put me on the rack. I swear it's better to be much abused than to know it a little." "What are you talking about, my lord? How now, my lord? What sense had I of her stolen hours of lust?" Okay, so immediately now Othello is talking about his wife stealing hours of lust from him. We're over here on page 627, line 339. "I saw it not, thought it not, it harmed not me. I slept the next night well, I ate well, I fed well, I was free and merry. I found not Cassio's kisses on her lips. He that is robbed, not wanting what is stolen, let him know it, and he's not robbed at all." So, what Othello is saying here is the idea that ignorance is bliss. If you don't know someone's been unfaithful to you, then you can be happy about it. And Iago's all, "I'm really sorry to hear this. I'm sorry to hear this." And Othello says, I had been happy if the general camp, pioneers, and all had tasted her sweet body." So now, instead of Othello talking about how he wants his wife to speak, he's talking about how all the handymen that have to follow around in the army when they're moving, he'd rather have had all of them slept with his wife. Tasted her sweet body. So tasted her sweet body. This is a trope that goes back into Old Testament times where women's bodies are consumable food, which is really misogynistic. And I want you to write down this word. I'm sure I've said this to you before. Misogyny, which means hatred of women. Women go to the gynecologist, right? Mis means hatred in the Latin root. So this is this hatred of women, having women only be used for pleasure and food. Probably some of you have friends who talk about how they want their wife to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. This stuff has not gone away. Misogyny for women has not gone away. And this is 400 years before what we're talking about, but it's relevant to today. I had been happy if the general camp pioneers and all had tasted her sweet body, so I had nothing known. I wish that had happened and I didn't know it. Oh, now, forever, farewell, tranquil mind. And listen to how many times it says farewell. Farewell, tranquil mind. Farewell, content. Farewell, the plumed troop and the big wars that make ambition virtue. Farewell. Farewell, the neighing steed and the shrill trump. So, farewell, goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. And this is where we have a marked character change in Othello. He's saying goodbye to everything that he has given his life for, everything that he has loved, everything that has made him who he is. Farewell, Othello's occupation gone. And Iago's like, oh my God, is it possible, my lord? And then Othello turns to Iago and says, villain, be sure thou prove my love a whore. Be sure thou prove my love a whore. Now, can you imagine a husband, a kind, caring husband, going from doting on his wife and saying, there's nothing I won't deny you, to saying to what he thinks is one of his best friends, you better show me that my wife is a whore. This is how Iago poisons everything. Be sure of it. Give me ocular proof. I want an eye of it, right? Or by the worth of my eternal soul, thou hast been better born a dog than answer my wicked wrath. If you don't show me that my wife is a whore, you'll wish you were born a dog, because I am going to come at you. And Iago says, has it come to this? Make me to see it, or at the least prove it. So instead of ocular proof, this proof from Iago, Othello says, that the probation bear no hinge nor loop to hang a doubt on, or woe upon your life, I will kill you. But my noble lord, if thou dost slander her and torture me, which is exactly what Iago is doing, is slandering Desdemona and torturing Othello, never pray more, abandon all remorse, on horror's head horrors accumulate, do deeds to make heaven weep, all earth amaze, for nothing canst thou to damnation add greater than that. So if you're going to be doing this and you're wrong, you better sin boldly. The problem is that Iago, he's happy to sin boldly. Now, It was St. Augustine who said, if you're going to sin, sin boldly. And if you don't know who St. Augustine is, look him up. He wrote the first autobiography in Western history more than 1,500 years ago. Okay? And Iago's like, oh grace, oh heaven, forgive me. And then he says, are you a man? I remember how Iago said, if I tell you what I'm thinking, I will take away your masculinity. I'll take away your manhood. Once again, an echo. Are you a man? Have you a soul or sense? God be with you. Take my office. Oh, wretched fool. And he's pretending to be humble as that he's made a mistake. He's calling himself a wretched fool, Iago is. Thou livest to make thine honesty a vice. Oh, monstrous world, take note. Take note, O world. To be direct and honest is not safe. He is lying this whole time, and he's turning honesty, instead of a virtue, into a sin. And he's all, poor me. I just was trying to tell you the truth. I thank you for this prophet, and from hence I'll love no friend, since love breeds such offense. So he accuses Iago of not being a man, and then says that he himself, Iago, will never love anybody ever again because it leads to this sort of problem, which of course is a bunch of BS. Do you feel sorry for Iago? I don't. I feel sorry for all these people that he just controls like little puppets. And Othello says, nay, stay, thou should be honest. You should be, oh, by the way, he says, I'll love no friend since love breeds offense. Going back to what I talked to you earlier, Iago makes everything that's beautiful ugly. Love never breeds something that's offensive. Okay? Back in the Middle Ages and in the Renaissance, there was a book called The Book of Monsters that was popular throughout all of Europe. And it's a book that's about 1,000 pages long, I think. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages long. And it shows pictures and descriptions of children who were born with birth defects. And it's called The Book of Monsters. And I don't have time right now to go into why people thought that children were monsters when they were born with birth defects. They usually killed them, or they would set them outside to expose them and let the animals eat them. But true love never gives birth to something offensive. I myself have a daughter with disabilities. She didn't come from me, but I've taken her into my household. And the idea is ridiculous, that if you have true love, that you're going to be breeding offense. And Iago says to Othello, I should be wise, for honesty is a fool. So notice how he's tipping everything. Honesty is now a fool. Love is offensive. And Othello says, by the world. And here we watch Othello going back and forth and back and forth. I think my wife is chaste, honest, and thinks she's not. I think that thou art just. I think that you are a righteous person, and think thou art not. I'll have some proof. Her name that was as fresh as Diana's, vicious Diana, is the goddess, is now begrimed and black as my own face. So here we have Othello participating in the racist discourse of Western culture, comparing Desdemona's reputation with his own skin color. Think about how far you have to sink when you're a great general, a leader of people, a savior of people, and now you're talking about how ugly your skin color is. If there be cords and knives, poisons or fire, or suffocating streams, I'll not endure it. I would be satisfied. Meaning, I want to know the truth. And Iago's like, I see, sir, you're eaten up with passion. I see. You seem to be upset. I do repent that I put it to you. I'm sorry I said it to you. And then, you would be satisfied? You want to know the truth? Even though he's going to give him a pack of lies. Would? Nay, I will, Othello says. And maybe how? How satisfied, my lord? Would you be the supervisor and grossly gape on, behold her topped? So would you be like Jerry Falwell Jr. and want to actually watch Cassio being on top of your wife? Death and damnation, oh! And then Iago says that scheduling such a thing where Othello could see Cassio having intercourse with Desdemona would be, quote, a tedious difficulty. And why? Tedious means it would take a lot of work. Because it's not happening. It's not happening. It would be a tedious difficulty, I think, to bring them to that prospect. Damn them, then! If ever mortal eyes do see them bolster more than their own, what then? How then? What shall I say? What satisfaction? It's impossible you should see this. Yeah, it is impossible. Because it's never happened and it's never going to. And then, of course, Iago has to compare Cassio and Desdemona to animals. Were they as prime as goats? As hot as monkeys? As solid as wolves in pride? Or as fools? As gross as ignorance has made drunk? You know, he's sitting there going, if only they were animals that went into heat, or people who drank too much and couldn't control their passions. But yet I say, if imputation and strong circumstances which lead directly to the door of truth will give you satisfaction, you can have it. You may have it. This man is an evil, evil person. Give me a living reason she's disloyal. And Iago's like, I don't like the office. Meaning, that's too big of a burden for me to bear. And then over here he's going, but since I'm entered in this cause so far, pricked to it by foolish honesty and love, I will go on. Oh, good for him. And now he's going to give Othello this completely made up fantasy about where he talks about him and Cassio sleeping in the same room and Cassio somehow lying on top of him and kissing him as though Iago were Desdemona. I lay with Cassio lately, and lay, just like today, the idea of get laid, it means the same thing. It means lying down, but he's going to make this disgusting. I don't know about you all, but I've slept in tents with friends. I've slept in the same room with friends. None of them has ever done what Iago is going to describe right here. Being troubled with a raging tooth, a toothache, I could not sleep. There are a kind of men so loose of soul that in their sleeps will mutter their affairs. There are these kind of men who they talk in their sleep. One of this kind is Cassio. In sleep I heard him say, Sweet Desdemona, let us be wary, let us hide our loves. And then, sir, would he grip and wring my hand and cry, Oh, sweet creature. And then he would kiss me hard, as if he plucked up kisses by the roots that grew upon my lips. Then laid his leg over my thigh and side, and kissed, and then cried, Cursed fate that gave thee to the Moor. Can you imagine that? Would any of you You have a friend or an acquaintance in the same bedroom as you. Let somebody lay on top of you and kiss you just so that you could report back to somebody else. And Othello, oh, monstrous, monstrous. And Iago's like, nay, this was but his dream. But Othello is already in this rage of jealousy. But this denoted a foregone conclusion. 'Tis a shrewd doubt, though it be but a dream. And Iago defends. And this may help to thicken other proofs that do demonstrate thinly. So remember this dream that never happened. Remember this experience, even if other things don't pan out. He's padding the game here. And Othello says, so this is a man who loves his wife at the beginning. And now he says, I'll tear her all to pieces. Iago, who's very happy about Othello being such a rage, pretends to be the calm one. Nay, but be wise, yet we see nothing done. She may be honest yet. She might be chaste. Tell me about this. Have you not sometimes seen a handkerchief? So remember the last video where I talked to you about this prop, right? And this convention. So, no, calm down. But tell me, have you seen a handkerchief lately? Spotted with strawberries in your wife's hand? I gave her such a one. 'Twas my first gift, Othello says. I didn't know that, but such a handkerchief, I am sure it was your wife's. Did I today see Cassio wipe his beard with it? Now, back in the Middle Ages and Renaissance time, if you plucked somebody's beard, if a man did that, that meant you were going to fight to the death. And to take a prized possession of another man's wife and wipe your mouth with it would be taking away that man's manhood. If it be that, or any that was hers, it speaks against her with the other proofs, Iago says. So the other proofs. This is like Kellyanne McConway talking about for President Trump after he was elected and said that there were more people at his inauguration than at Barack Obama's, which it was obvious there were not. Kellyanne Conway did this phrase that will go down in history. Well, there are alternative facts. What is a fact? Fact means truth. Alternative facts mean lies. And Othello is in such a rage, he says, oh, that the slave, so he's calling Cassio, who has been his right-hand man, oh, that slave, I wish that slave had 40,000 lives. One life is too poor, too weak for my revenge. Now, do I see 'tis true? So he's convinced. Look here, Iago. All my fine love do I thus blow to heaven. I don't have love for Desdemona anymore. 'Tis gone. Arise, black vengeance, from the hollow hell. Yield up, O love, thy crown and hearted throne to tyrannous hate. Swell bosom with thy fraught, for 'tis of aspices tongue. My heart is turned into poisonous snakes. And Iago looks at him and says, and yet be content. But be chill, man. It's okay. Even though he is so delighted to have enraged Othello so. And Othello's response mimics the first line that Iago spoke. Remember when he said, "Splud, it's blood"? Or the book says, by the gods' blood. But anyway, it's blood. Othello says, oh, blood, blood, blood. Patience, I say. Your mind perhaps may change. Never, Iago. So Othello has his mind made up. And if you go over to line, it doesn't give a line number. I guess it does. About 455. No, 458. He says, even so my bloody thoughts with violence pace shall never look back, never ebb to humble love, till that a capable and wide revenge swallow them up. And then Othello, a general, kneels in front of a soldier, kneels in front of Iago and says, now by yond marble heaven, and think about this is happening in Shakespeare's theater, the Globe, and so this audience can look up at the sky because there is no roof over it. And he says, now by yond marble heaven, in due reverence of a sacred vow, I here engage my words. And here Othello is going to take a vow. On his knees, with heaven as his witness. And he says that, and then he starts to get up, and Iago's like, don't get up yet. So who's in charge? The general or the advisor? Iago obviously is. And Iago knows with him, and he says this, witness, you ever burning lights above the stars, you elements that clip us around about, witness that here Iago does give up the execution of his wit, hands, heart, to the wronged, to the betrayed Othello's service. Let him command and to obey shall be in me remorse. What bloody business ever. And then they get up. So Iago has just sworn a blood oath to Othello. Eve Sedgwick, who is a great literary critic, wrote a book called Between Men. You can look up the full title, but Eve Sedgwick wrote Between Men, Homosocial Desire, and I think it's Western Culture. And a phrase that she uses that has always stuck with me for the past 30 plus years is that men pledge their trust in each other, their loyalty to each other over the dead, discarded, or discredited body of a woman. Now, Desdemona is not dead yet. She is being cast aside by Othello. She's been discredited by Iago. And soon she will become dead. And then Othello, once they've arisen, says, I greet thy love. Thank you so much for being such a good friend. And then he orders the death of Cassio. Within 3 days, make sure he's not alive. So think about the 7 deadly sins. What would that be if you ordered someone else's death and you didn't kill him or her yourself? Certainly it'd be wrath. Certainly it would be jealousy. In this case, it's sloth. Go and do this. Take care of this problem for me. And Iago says, plain as day, since he said he's been such a friend of Cassio's, this is in line about 474. My friend is dead. 'Tis done at your request. And then he looks, but let her live. So right there, planting the idea that it's not enough to kill Cassio. Why not kill Desdemona too? And Othello says, damn her, lewd minx. I want you to Google what a minx is, and Google a minx's mating habits. Oh, damn her, damn her. Come go with me apart. I will draw to furnish me with some swift means of death for the fair devil. I'm going to go and think about how to kill that beautiful devil that's my wife. Now, and then he gives him a promotion. Thou art my lieutenant. And Iago looks at him. I am your own forever. Okay. So then we're going to have a scene with Desdemona and a clown about where Cassio's at, and it's for comic relief, and there's a whole pun on the idea of lies. So lies can be untruths, right? That you're a liar. Or it can mean to lay down. And Desdemona enters with the clown and says, do you know, sir, where Lieutenant Cassio lies? Oh, I dare not say he lies anywhere. Cassio never lies. Verbally, he never tells untruth. And Desdemona says, why, man? Well, he's a soldier. And for me to say a soldier lies is stabbing. Go to, where lodges he? To tell you where he lodges is to tell you where I lie. Because the clown doesn't know. So if I told you where he is staying, I'd have to lie because I have no idea. And Desdemona asks, can anything be made of this? She asks that to Emilia. And the clown says, I know not where he lodges, and for me to devise a lodging and say he lies here or he lies there were to lie in my own throat. Well, can you inquire about him and be edified by report? Can you find out? I will catechize the world for him. That is, make questions and by them answer. Seek him, bid him come hither. Tell him I have moved my lord on his behalf and hope all will be well. Go and find him and tell him I've convinced Othello. And she's not lying. She does believe that she's convinced him. And the clown says, to do this is within the compass of man's wit, and therefore, so this is easily done if you're smart. If you're a man who's smart, and that's why I will attempt doing it. Because the clown is making the audience laugh that he's not that smart, even though he's very smart, right? And Desdemona asks Emilia about her handkerchief, and Emilia lies to her and says, so we have the introduction of the idea of lying, and Emilia lies, I don't know. And Desdemona says she would rather have lost her wallet, her purse, full of money, than to have lost that handkerchief. And she's just happy that her husband is not jealous. And Emilia's like, he's not jealous? I think the son where he was born drew all such humors from him. And then Othello comes onto the stage. And Emilia's like, look where he comes. I will not leave him now till Cassio be called to him. And Desdemona is going to continue diligently pressing Cassio's case to get back in Othello's good graces. How is it with you, my lord? Othello, well, my good lady, and then he turns to the audience aside so the actors on the stage don't hear it, and says, oh, hardness to dissemble, meaning it's really hard to lie. This whole scene is about lying. Othello now is lying to his lady love. How do you, Desdemona? Well, my good lord, give me your hand. This hand is moist, my lady. Do you remember when Iago was talking about fornicating hands? And Desdemona's like, yes, it's felt no age, nor no sorrow. I'm young, that's why it's moist. And yet, Othello takes up this idea, even though he didn't hear Iago say it, about how hands are symbols of some sort of infidelity. This argues fruitfulness and liberal heart. This having a moist hand argues that you're going to have a lot of babies and you're not going to be faithful. You're going to have a liberal heart. And what Shakespeare is playing with here, this is early science. The humors of the body, when people thought that you could explain everything about people. This is another proto-psychology. It's faux science, but it was people starting to try to understand. They thought, they envisioned the idea that people were made up of humors, of the earth, wind, fire, and that if you had these, earth, wind, and fire, and you categorize them as hot, it's like a personality test, hot and cold, then you could understand why a person does what a person does. And so Othello says, hot, and moist. This hand of yours requires a sequester from liberty, fasting, and prayer. You need to repent for your hand. Much castigation, exercise devout, for here's a young and sweating devil here that commonly rebels. Your hand is a little devil that's going to rebel. And then he says, 'tis a good hand, a frank one. So it's a hand that reveals your dishonesty. Frank means honest. And Desdemona says, you may indeed say so, for 'twas the hand that gave away my heart to you. And Othello says, a liberal hand. The hearts of old gave hands, but our new heraldry is hands, not hearts. So he's accusing her right there in a very sly way of being unfaithful to him. And Desdemona says, I cannot speak of this. Come now, your promise. What promise, Chuck? Which is a term of endearment. What promise? I've sent a bid to Cassio to come speak with you. She has no idea that he is in the thralls of a jealous rage. And is saying, look, you told me you would speak to him. And he says, I have a salt and sorry room offends me. I've got a cold. Do you have that handkerchief I gave you so I can blow my nose all over it? Here, my lord, the one I gave you. I have it not about me. Not? No, my lord. Well, that's a fault. That handkerchief did an Egyptian to my mother give, so this is an heirloom in the family. She was a charmer, meaning a gypsy or a soothsayer, and could almost read the thoughts of people. She told my mother while she kept it, it would make her amiable and subdue my father entirely to love her. So it's supposed to have a love spell on it. But if she lost it or made a gift of it, my father's eye should hold her loathed. If she lost it, my father would hate her, and his spirits should hunt after new fancies. When my mother was dying, she gave it to me and bid me, when my fate would have me get married, to give it to my wife. I did so, and take heed on it. Make it a darling like your precious eye. To lose it or give it away were such a perdition, meaning hell or damnation, as nothing else could match. And can you imagine? You've had this gift from the person you ended up marrying for years. they've only been married shortly, but you were given the gift for years, at least a year ago. And now you're being told, if you lose it, you're going to be damned to hell. And she says, is it possible? 'Tis true, there's magic in the web of it. A sibyl, meaning someone who could see the future, a sibyl that had numbered in the world the sun to 200 100 compasses. So a sibyl who was 200 years old, which obviously can't be unless you're magic, right? In her prophetic fury sowed the work. The worms were hallowed. They were blessed, and did breed the silk. And it was dyed in mummy, which the skillful conserved of maidens' hearts. So not only did you have someone who was 200 years old weave it, but it was dyed, and then it was conserved with the blood from virgins, so that the dye wouldn't run out. In faith, is it true? Most veritable, therefore look to it well. And Desdemona says what anybody would say, then would be to God that I had never seen it. Why? Wherefore? Why do you speak so startling and rash? Desdemona says, is it lost? Is it gone? Speak, is it out of the way? And Desdemona's like, God help us. Heaven bless us. Say you? It's not lost, but what if it were? How? I say it's not lost. Fetch it. Now tell me how often you've said to another human being, fetch. Probably not in your lifetime. He is now treating her like a dog. Fetch it, let me see it. Why, so I can, sir, but I will not now. This is a trick to put me from my suit. You're trying to belay my asking you about Cassio, right? Pray you, let Cassio be received again. Fetch me the handkerchief. My mind misgives. I decided not to see Cassio. Come, come. You'll never meet a more sufficient man. The handkerchief. I pray you, talk to me of Cassio. The handkerchief. A man all those long years, all his time has founded his good fortunes on your love, shared dangers with you. The handkerchief. In faith, you are to blame. And remember the last time we heard Othello talk with her, he, as he was pondering his jealousy, said, I am to blame. And Othello says, zounds! And Emilia turns over because she's being very helpful. Is not this man jealous? And Desdemona says, because he storms off, right? And Desdemona says, I never saw this before. Sure, there's some wonder in this handkerchief. I'm most unhappy in the loss of it. And Desdemona lies to her, and she talks about what happens under a patriarchal regime and misogyny. She says in lines 98, "'Tis not a year or two shows us a man." Okay, we don't really understand who men are in a year or two, but this is Emilia's take on all men. They are all but stomachs. And we are all but food. Okay. So once again, comparing women to food and men to consuming women. They're only stomachs, and we are only food. They eat us hungrily. And when they are full, they belch us. Okay, so men are all stomachs, and we are all food. They eat us hungrily, and when they are full, they burp us. They burp us out of their mouths. And now Iago and Cassio come in, and Emilia says, "Look, Cassio and my husband." Iago comes up. "There's no other way, 'tis she must do it, and lo the happiness, go in and ask her." So he's telling Cassio, "Go up and ask Desdemona to help you again." And Desdemona says, "How now, good Cassio, what's the news?" "Madam, my former suit, I do beseech you that by your virtuous means I may again exist and be a member of his love, whom I with all the office of my heart entirely honor. So please, please help me." And Desdemona says, "Alas, thrice gentle Cassio." And she's not going to give up. "My advocation is not now in tune. My lord is not my lord. I'm going to help you, but right now, I'm not in a position to do it." Why? Because my lord, my husband, is not my lord, says Desdemona. Remember back to Iago, some of his first words, "I am not what I am. I am not what I am. My lord is not my lord." And Iago's all in line 127. "Is my lord angry?" He plays like he doesn't know. And Emilia says, "He went hence but now, and certainly in strange unquietness." And Iago says, "Can he be angry? I've seen the cannon when it has blown his ranks in the air." The weapon, right? "And like the devil from his very arm puffed his own brother. And is he angry? Something of the moment then, I will go meet him. There's a matter in it indeed if he be angry." Is he angry, angry? And Desdemona's like, "Please do." And so Iago exits. Desdemona goes on to talk about, in line 143, "We must think men are not gods." No man is perfect, right? But she ends up saying, "He has indicted witness falsely against me." And Emilia's like, "Pray heaven it be state matters as you think, and no conception nor jealous toy concerning you." Just let's hope he's not jealous about you. Maybe he's got too much on his mind. And Desdemona says, "Alas the day, I never even gave him cause to doubt me." And Emilia, her version of men, which is the version her husband represents, "But jealous souls will not be answered so. They're not ever jealous for the cause, but jealous for because they're jealous. 'Tis the monster begot upon itself, born on itself." And Desdemona says, "Heaven keep that monster from Othello's mind." The next scene, I'll let you read it. It's with Bianca and Cassio. Bianca is Cassio's prostitute that he visits, and Bianca misses him. Of course, if a prostitute says, "Why haven't you been around in such a long time?" you could fool yourself and say, "Oh, she loves me," like in Pretty Woman, which is a complete remake of the Cinderella story and is absolutely not happening. Or it would be, let's say that you have a John, somebody who pays you 3 times a week for sex. You're missing out on the cash. Okay? And yet she's a little jealous when Cassio hands her the handkerchief that he's all, "I found this in my room. I don't know where it came from, but it's beautiful. I'd like you to make a copy of it." And she says that she will do that for him. If you go to the end of the act, on line 190, Cassio tells her, "Now get off stage because I'm getting ready to meet Othello, And he says that he doesn't want Othello to see him womaned. And that is in line 191. Womaned. That somehow if he has a person that he's with, he will be perceived as not enough of a soldier. And Bianca says, why, I pray you? And Cassio says, it's not that I love you not. Anytime someone says not in the same sentence, you have to go anyway. And then Bianca says, but that you do love me, I pray you bring me on the way a little, and say if I shall see you soon at night. 'Tis but a little way, and I can bring you, for I attend here, but I'll see you soon. 'Tis very good. I must leave because of the circumstances. So, nobody in this play is necessarily perfect. Desdemona is as close as we're going to get. Cassio is as close as we're going to get. And by the way, prostitution was frowned on by certain parts of England and certain parts of Europe. On the other hand, it was common, very, very common. So just because Cassio visits Bianca, who's a prostitute, and pays her money, would not necessarily cause the Elizabethan audience to think he's a bad person. All right? So far, by the end of Act 3, Iago is getting exactly what he wants. So I have to do my Mr. Burns impression. Excellent. Excellent. It's all coming to fruition. All right? Or you can do the Darth Vader. We will rule the universe. All right? But certainly Iago, if you are a Star Wars fan, represents the dark side, and he is hook, line, and sinker reeling Othello into the dark side and painting everything that's good and beautiful and everyone who is good and beautiful as trash. Thank you. I look forward to talking to you about Act 4.